the so-called few money bucket, where if at one point you ask how much money you got in the bank, some people will tell you, oh, I got 100,000, I have 200,000. At one point, I started to think about it in years. Oh, I got 1 year, I got 5 years, I got 10 years of money in the bank, which gives you a very different feeling about your life. If you can tell about yourself, you got 10 years of savings aside. You got 10 years to try something else and fail at it several times.
You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before FI. Using FIRE and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to FI instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a FIRE movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Matt, thank you very much for joining the show today. I'm really happy to have you on. So just to give guys and girls an idea of who you are, do you mind, Matt, just giving a really quick intro, a little 60-second intro on what you're about and what you're currently doing?
Cool. Thank you, Greg, for having me. I'm Matt. I'm Swiss. I'm currently in Switzerland. I used to be in the banking sector very long, but mostly in Asia, so like Taiwan, Singapore. I used to help the so-called crazy rich Asians to manage their wealth, to look after their portfolios, to help them invest, to look after like how to make sense out of money for them. And on the way, by doing that, I learned really a lot for myself as well. And I built my own portfolio, started to invest, and became financially independent by 36, 37, and then quit my job in 2017. It's now 8 years ago, and built another life, created another life around FI ever since.
Amazing. And then just briefly, what's keeping you busy at the moment then, Matt, since you're in that sort of FI zone? What's keeping you busy recently?
Well, the last week was all about skiing. That's why you see some leftover injuries here on my lip. I got too much sun. What keeps me busy otherwise? So, yeah, well, travel, spending quality time with family. I run my blog, The Financial Imagineer. I have not written too many things on my main page. I do that recently mostly on medium.com, but maybe I come to that later. What else? So I've become a part-time politician in our town,
Wow.
looking after the finances and the economy of our city. And I still have two companies that I run, which is mostly like, how to say, recreational employment in a way, like things I want to do anyways, but I put them under a company wrapper to optimize all the things around it.
Amazing. Sounds like you're more busy now than before you were FI.
Well, that's one of the questions, right? So I think usually when you have a job, you are busy with your job, right? And then when you become FI, a lot of people are very scared of not knowing what to do, of having this emptiness. So financial independence, that part is a number of things. So you have to work towards reaching the numbers, but the retire early, the RE part, that's, I think, the part where you can get very creative. You need to create your new life around that. And you can be very busy or you can do nothing at all. But history and science shows that people who have no purpose in life after they do nothing, right, that they die fairly early compared to those who keep doing something. And the doing something, of course, should be something that you like, that you enjoy, and gives your life purpose and meaning.
Yeah, so you're doing things now of your choice, totally,
Yes.
and doing things that are totally, things that fulfill you and you enjoy, as you said. So yeah, awesome.
Correct.
Okay. All right, Matt. So just on the FI thing, you mentioned that you got to FI around 2016, 2017 when you were around the 37 years old. Could you just briefly talk us through how you know, in general, how you got there? How did you get to become
Oh, well,
FI?
yeah. Maybe where do I start, right? So kindergarten, I sold some stuff around the neighborhood. I was like this, this a bit put me in this corner. I was trying to do some sort of business ever since I was a kid. At 14, I was allowed to have my first job. I got a job at 14. I was the paper boy in the neighborhood. I had 400 neighborhoods to serve and deliver papers. So at age 14, I had a monthly salary of 540. And that was quite high considered back then. Um, Going forward, I started to invest at 16 because I had to learn what to do with all this money. My dad helped me with that. When I turned 18, I joined a pizza joint. Back then, there was one of the first pizza deliveries that actually delivered food to your home. That was a thing back then. Not so it was not fairly common like nowadays. So business was extremely good, and I enjoyed driving my car. So basically, in a nutshell, work, work, work. At the beginning, it was a lot of effort and work and earning money. And I also studied economics, which helped me to understand the world, have a very structural approach to look at how things are done. It's like the rules of the game. When you look at life, like playing Monopoly or the game of life, you cannot play it without understanding the rules, right? And then if you look at Monopoly, the people who just wait until they cross the start field to cash in their $200 for each round and never invest anything, well, that's what they will end up with, just the 200. And inflation every round will get more expensive because people upgrade their real estate, and eventually that's not how you win. So basically, economics and looking at the rules of life, so to say, guided me towards very, very curious actions of looking at how do other people do that. So I ended up in wealth management after my studies in Taiwan. And I was very happy to be in Taiwan because other than in Switzerland, where you have a lot of second and third generation wealth, in Asia, most of the wealthy people, they were the first generation wealthy people. So these were my clients, and I could help them invest their portfolios, look after their money, and learned everything else. Like why? Because the banker cannot just accept money. Like here's a suitcase, here's 2 million, look after it, please. You have to ask questions. You have to understand, how did you make this money? How did you how did you put these 2 million now in this suitcase? Or that there was no suitcases, of course, there was wire transfers, but you have to go very deep into the details. And I did a lot of client visits, went to factories, to their offices, and I asked them questions. And very interesting was, all of these people at one point in their life, they took a step away from the comfort zone. They had to overcome some difficulties, and then eventually it paid off and they made it wealthy. So I kind of learned from 140 very wealthy people that became my friends because I went to see them fairly often, looked after their family wealth, and also started to build my own nest egg, of course, right? So that's then just the natural consequence if you surround yourself with all these inputs all the time. And on the other side, I could never stop reading financial blogs. So back then there was J.D. Roth, Get Rich Slowly, and then there was Mr. Money Mustache, who inspired me deeply. And I basically read almost all their content. And then later, when the things came on podcasts and YouTube, I also joined them, and I was guest on some of their shows. I wrote guest posts on their websites, and I traveled like a person that travels to Rome to see the Pope. I traveled to FinCon to meet my idols there. And I just understood, hey, well, I'm also there. The numbers added up, and then in 2017 I decided to quit my job. That's maybe the path there, and then maybe more. That's maybe a little bit too fluffy, if you will. So what did I do exactly? I put in a lot of. I had like 2-3 rounds of failure, so I got really hurt badly in the new economic when the new economy bubble burst in 2000 2001. That was the first time I lost a lot of money in the stock markets. 2007 and 8, I was fairly okay prepared. I still lost a lot, but it was more aligned with the market. And later on, I think I just added more money. I had back then there was still mutual funds, later ETFs, and some single stocks that I kept on adding on positions. One of my goals before quitting my job was to have my salary or my living expenses covered from dividends. So that was like my definition of FIRE was I don't need to work. I can just take the dividends and I don't need to attack my capital. That was one thing. And another big driver of building the wealth was real estate for me. So buying a house, we bought a house that was a bit oversized for our needs. And we actually rented out a room, a junior master room for several years to other people who became good friends of us. And this extra rental income actually covered the mortgage interest, whereby my contributions went to actually lowering the mortgage principal. And all these things together. So I had a high paying job. I did real estate investment and I did stock market investments. And I had a high saving rate.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you done, obviously, from when you were younger, you already had quite a high work ethic, doing all these lot of sort of side jobs and investing when you were young. That's quite young to be investing. And then obviously when you did get work, you mentioned that you worked with, these 140 individuals, you were understanding, learning from them. And then over time, you got into the whole FI space through the blogs back then. It sounds like you had quite a mixed sort of training ground, which is amazing. And obviously going to different countries helped, a bit of geo arbitrage there as well, and having a high sort of salary. There's a lot of factors there. Are you able to touch on what was your goal? What was your FIRE goal, like in terms of numbers or anything like that, or just some rough ideas?
Yeah. The goal was to have my expenses covered, and the interesting part was exactly what you mentioned with geo arbitrage. So we were living in Singapore back then, and Singapore is fairly expensive, but if you are a little bit more frugal, eventually you figure out that you don't have to go to the high-end outlets, the high-end shopping malls. Singapore has also wet markets and other things, so you can always find a way around it. So maybe there, if you want to have a ballpark number, it's maybe $5,000 to $6,000 a month of income covered from dividends. And another very interesting part was also we had the house there. So I suddenly realized the house is usually when you live in a house and you just use it, you are actually consuming your assets, right? But you can convert whatever house or real estate you have into a rental property. And once you do that, it will become an income bearing asset for you and putting money into your pocket. So the cool thing was at one point I realized I can actually simply rent out the property, keep it. The mortgage was also fine and safe because I paid off some, and use this money as well to contribute to our goal. And then the goal was, in other words, to have work optional for both of us, my wife and I, and we have 2 kids. And to be able to stay wherever we like, and if we want to find work, but that's not a must.
So in terms of the allocation of sort of investments, you did mention stock market, obviously property. What was like the rough percentage of what was in, stocks, what was in the house, what was in, other sort of investment?
I think we had about 1/3, only 1/3 was in stocks and other things, but that has also something to do because we had 3 properties at that moment. We bought a property in Taiwan fairly early, which was relatively affordable in the early 2000s, in the zeros, right? Before the 2010 years started. That was a really great investment. However, there we didn't rent it out. That was like a vacation property. But of course, the asset base increased in value. So we bought the house in Singapore in the early 2010s, which later also almost doubled in value, which was tremendous. And so there, that actually grew almost faster than the stock market part, which was wonderful. And then in 2017, we bought a house in Switzerland as well. But a lot of it was also financed with mortgages. So I think the credit part made a big contribution to the ability. So it's like a big company that can extend their balance sheet. So I think for my side, fire credit or the ability to borrow money, even though some people say it's like a double-edged sword, right? It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. I look at it at debt as a tool. It's like you probably also have a toolbox in your garage full of hammers and saws and stuff, and the hammer can be used to hammer in a nail very nicely, or you can hit on your thumb, right? So credit, loans, all these things for me are a tool, and you've got to understand how to use them and what are the dangers of them, right? And I used fairly a lot of leverage, if you will, to get to these goals. And therefore, I would say maybe 2/3 of the cake was in real estate and 1/3 on capital market investments.
And just really quickly, on the capital market investment side, what did you say that was index funds or single sort of stocks? What was that?
A bit of everything, right? So I had one thing was I shouldn't name the company, right? So there's a company that did extremely well in 2008 and 9. The Bond King was managing this fund, and I really enjoyed seeing how some of my clients in the bank made this fund work for them. So I bought that fund as well for myself. It's a fixed income fund. It's not an ETF. It's a mutual fund. That was one of my core positions. And even now, I still have it. It yields around 6.4% and gives monthly payouts. And it's very nice because with something like that, you can kind of recreate a monthly paycheck with fairly stable volatility. There's another fund that mixes, so that's like an unconstrained fixed income fund setup. That's number one. Number two, I have an asset allocation fund, which has three portions. One is high yield, one is convertible bonds. The third part is equities with a covered call overlay. So they write call options on the equity portion. And this one yields about 6.6% at the moment. Also monthly paid out. And these two things are like the main part of the income producing portfolio, which I actually every month while I still worked at the bank, I added more. And usually the thing was you can also do the strategic rebalancing between these two because the first one, the fixed income, is less volatile, but the second one is moving more up and down. So if, of course, markets crash, the latter will go down. So you actually maybe sell some of the fixed income portion and buy the other one back. And if the markets run up very high, you do the opposite. And, you don't have to do everything or stuff like that. But in a tiny fraction of your portfolio, you shift around a certain part to optimize that. I do that every quarter. And besides that, I had ETFs like the Vanguard 500, the MSCI World. I have a Swiss dividend ETF. I have the Dividend Aristocrat ETF for US stocks, and of course also some single stocks, which would go too much into detail. But I had a portfolio of Singapore, let's say telecom, bank, real estate, the REITs, this kind of things that paid like dividends of 4 to 6%, sometimes quarterly payouts. And in Switzerland, I have also a dividend portfolio with an average yield of 5% plus in Swiss francs, which is fairly good. But these parts are less driven for growth, so there's more stability as well. And then the excess money goes into a growth fund, a global growth fund. Here I would also have a specific name. It's a company from the UK which managed they have a super outstanding track record. I keep filling that bucket up with excess money. And just this year, they did extremely well. Somehow they had a bit more exposure in China than all the others. So that paid off again. And they were part of NVIDIA, of Netflix growth, of all these stories that you heard. So that's basically my setup here.
Oh, amazing. Although you said like a third of it is in the sort of stocks and shares type thing. There's quite a lot in there as well. So it's quite intricate, and yeah.
That fund is it's not cheap, I have to say, but basically you don't have to look into selling options, and depending where you are, if you sell too many options, you could be qualified as a professional investor, where the tax authorities will look at you in a different way than if a professional does it and you pay something for it. And of course, if these guys sell options on your equity holdings, they do it at institutional fees. So the fee part for the transactions will be rather low, and they will manage the whole portfolio. If you want to manage a portfolio with, like, let's just give an example, 50 shares, and you want to sell call options every month on all these 50 shares, I think you don't have time to enjoy life anymore.
Indeed. Matt, you've got an interesting article on your blog. It's about the three main levers to achieve financial independence. And I think the first one is around earning more, spending less. The second one was around saving more and doing more investing. And then the third one was about your return, thinking about your return on investment, and obviously how much time involved. Just on those three levers, Matt, any sort of practical tips you can give people on, maybe on some of those levers, what you've done that others can get inspired or could do as well?
Well, the main message probably is take investing and money seriously, because it can truly change your life. That's maybe the main message. And like I mentioned before, some people are so busy with their 9 to 5, with their work, and they never take a time out, so to say, to look at their own financial life. So whenever I talk with people or friends that come to look for me to ask for help on these things, the first thing we do is we do like a financial health checkup. So we look at the assets, the liabilities. So it's like a balance sheet, assets, liabilities. What do you have? What do you owe? And the second thing is like the P&L, what comes in, what goes out, where does money come from, where does money go to? And then at the end, you can quite surely kind of say, are you financially healthy? Are you struggling? And you can see why. And I think this kind of health checkup everybody should do every once in a while. You can do it for yourself, for your family, together with your partner. I think it's very essential to know where you're standing, because most people don't do that ever. And that's why maybe they are not advancing the way they would imagine or dream about, right? So that's maybe the first thing. So earning more, of course, that's very easy. You should find a better job and so forth. But the main point for financial independence is you should reach this so-called crossover point, which means your income from invested assets should actually cross over the expenses that you have. And you can only do that if you save, if you have a surplus every month. So it means more money comes in that goes out. And of course, if now people come to me and say, hey, well, I really cannot earn more money, this is the best I can do, and then use that as an excuse why they cannot save money, then it's not good enough for me. Well, then you have the expenses side, right? You can go and see, well, you pay how much for your car. Do you need a car? Would you like to? That's a bit like in the US, or depending where you are, maybe you cannot switch to a bike or public transport. But I always also say, like, you are not a tree. Feel free to move. So some people, instead of living in the suburbs and complain they cannot save money because they have very high car payments, and they have a big house that they actually just pay a lot of bills for, but they only sleep there at night and cannot enjoy it at all because they spent the whole day in the CBD working their asses off to keep the bills afloat, right? So I think the lifestyle concept there doesn't make sense. And you maybe want to consider to downsize a bit. So that's usually the very interesting part, like how much is financial independence worth for you? Because nothing on this world comes for free. And if you want to say, I want to be financially independent, there is a price tag to it, which means deferred gratification. You need to see where you can cut today so you can have more tomorrow. And very simple there. income and expenses, you need to increase this gap as much as you can. But you shouldn't suffer through that, of course. You should have a nice life. But I just argue most people will find many ways to look through these parts and find a lot of things that they can improve on. So that's usually the first pillar that I help people with. Then the second pillar, of course, is saving and investing. So if you save money, there is these people who say, "Well, I don't know how to invest," and they just don't do anything. They just save. And the last few years were particularly interesting because we finally have inflation back, right? And inflation is not very helpful if you want to protect your purchasing power with your savings. So you've got to invest. And inflation also helps you if you have debt. So if you borrow money and you pay maybe a very low interest rate and you fix that for 10 or 20 years, and at the same time, the nominal value or the value of this debt decreases 4 or 5% each year because of inflation, while the housing asset price go up, you have an automatic thing. You're aligned with like the central banks, or you're aligned with the government who has also a lot of debt. Always think about like, what are the big guys doing? What are the companies doing? What are the governments of your country doing, right? If they have a lot of debt, chances are it will be good for you to also have some debt, just as a strategic asset in a way, because debt usually will get easier to pay off. Some countries in Europe, most of them had currency reforms in the last 120 years. So in the last century, there were, I think, Greece had more than 10 currency reforms. France had 4 or 5 of them. Germany, 3 or 4. Many countries had currency reforms. And if you simply have a piece of real estate versus a mortgage, you will be a big winner if a currency reform happens, right? But inflation is the slow path to that. But 5, 10, 20 years make a very big difference. So that's that. So you have to invest. And that's on the third pillar then, is to spend more time on that and optimize it for you to make your own money machine working the way you like it. I like to say personal finance is personal because there's no one size fits it all. So everybody will have their different approach, and that's fine like that. That makes our world so interesting. So you have to see what fits your needs. Some people, if they put money into NASDAQ ETFs, they will never be able to sleep because the volatility is killing them. Other people put everything in Bitcoin. They don't diversify, and maybe they win, maybe they lose, right? Other people, again, they like the fixed income part and maybe some very broad, diversified ETFs. They maybe take 5 to 10 years later, but the chance of achieving their goals is higher. So the whole combination of things will make it even more interesting. So like I like to invest in both. Some people, they say, should I do real estate or should I do ETFs? I like to tell why pick one. You have to do both, because the bank can give you a margin of credit on your assets in the bank. And of course, you shouldn't max it out. But if your ETFs grow just maybe 50, 60% over 5 years, you can maybe buy another house using your portfolio in the bank as a source for another cash down payment, and then buy another rental and rent it out and let it work for itself. Every once in a while, you can add on to your portfolio. So the third pillar for me is spend more time on managing your assets, because and learn it early, learn it with small money. So people may argue, oh, it's not worth my time. I don't have enough to justify the effort. I think this is a very wrong statement. I've seen many people, they inherit at one point, they have like a windfall of cash coming in or of assets coming in. And then when they start to get interested in the topic, they have no clue what they're doing. And they usually do mistakes with very high amounts of money. So it's better to have these mistakes happen with smaller amounts of money and grow with them, right? Learn from them. We all do mistakes, and that's natural and normal. And therefore, start early, take it seriously, learn and improve the skill of investing.
Yeah, I like that last bit as well about managing your assets. Because what I find is with sort of personal finance and investing and things like that, actually it's all about admin. It's actually a lot of admin involved in all of this,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
budgeting, trackers, checking you're paying the right amount for subscriptions, and calling up your electrical utility companies and checking you're paying the right. There's a lot of just admin involved. So if you're, I always think like if you're on top of like the admin side of it, you should be as you progress, you should be okay.
Also, one thing maybe, if you allow me to add one more thing,
Yeah, of course.
I've bumped into people who come to ask for help, and when we do the balance sheet, I sometimes see huge chunks of their assets lying around idle. So you maybe have heard of the case where people say, I am asset rich but cash poor. And so there were people asking me to help them with making a financial plan for their FI journey, and they actually had all the ingredients ready. But what I like to look at is then, okay, you got assets. What is this asset doing for you, right? So if you have a nice ski lodge somewhere in the mountains, and you say, yeah, it's worth 1 million or whatever, but it costs me 20,000 of upkeep every year. Well, then it's, for me, it's not an asset, it's a liability. But if you consider and say, hey,
Yeah.
well, I should rent it out, I should do a short-term rental out of it. Maybe some people say, I can never do that. Well, you can have a person to help you with this. You can delegate it. And then maybe for renting it out a few months a year, this thing will become self financed and so on. And you maybe even have like a positive rental yield on it, right? So there's a lot of people who don't understand. They already have many pieces of the puzzle together. It's just a matter of how to activate their assets, or I like to say, get your assets off their asses, right? To not let them sleep, to wake them up and activate them to
Make
work
them
for
work.
you. Yeah. Sorry, little add on here.
No, that's a good one. And then I was just going to ask really quickly about, because you mentioned timeframes as well earlier. In your case, from when you found out about the whole FI movement, you were reading the blogs, JD Roth, etc. From that sort of point of knowing about FIRE, how long did it actually take you till when you actually got to sort of achieve your FIRE number? Just give the guys and girls an idea of timeframes.
My number maybe here 11, 12 years. However, I have to say I've made my first attempts as an investor before that, as I mentioned before. So, but
Mm-hmm.
there I wasn't really strategic about it. I only could feel like it's a very powerful thing. If you know how to handle your money, you can grow it over time. And the main gasp there, I always had this in my head, like the game we are all playing here on this planet is called capitalism, right? And in capitalism, you have two sorts of capital. You have human capital and you have financial capital. And when you're young, you have a lot of human capital and zero financial capital. And the older you get, the more you should make a transfer from your human capital to financial capital. It could be that at one point your boss kicks you out of the company, you lose your job, the economy is changing, you're no longer relevant, your skills are no longer in demand. So basically, that part, if you will, that was maybe 20 years in the making in my head until FI. But it took the first 8 years. I was not strategic about going for a FIRE portfolio. I just wanted to learn how to handle money. And then after I started to look into the blogs, took me another 12 years to get to FI.
I see.
So there are
Okay.
two answers. Eight
Wow.
years to understand that. So if you're playing around, you're not strategic and not focused on a goal, right? So that's maybe another thing. Set a goal. If you just say, I'm going to invest some, I'm going to save some, it's not specific. So have a smart goal, specify, measure, look, like define the goal, make a big number, that your goal, and then you work towards that. Even the goal is way too big, you should have that number in your head. And then once you reach it, even more important, understand when enough is enough, because a lot of people, they cannot stop there. But that's another story. Like, how much is enough?
Yeah. Yeah, I liked what you said about goals, because I did hear about like There was a study that showed, people that whether they struggled with personal finances or didn't achieve FI, it's mainly because they just didn't have it as a goal. Just wasn't a goal.
Yeah,
So they didn't
correct.
think about it. They didn't do any strategies around it. They didn't have it in their sort of day-to-day, weekly plan type thing. So yeah, good point.
And the goal you should not just have for yourself, especially if you're married or have a family. Have it as a family goal, have it as a goal together with your partner. What we like to do, we do, it's a bit Chinese, even though my wife is from Taiwan, we do 5-year plans. So basically, every 5 years, we sit together, and my wife and I, we both get about 10 like these kind of notes, 3M stickers. And she gets the pink ones, I take the blue ones, my kids green and whatever. So we have different stickers. And the idea is to write on these stickers your dreams. Start with the dreams. Maybe I want to learn Mandarin Chinese. I want to become a property investor. I want to have $1 million in an account invested, and so on. So you write down these goals, and then you actually look at what your partner wrote. Some of these things may align very fast, so they have the same goal, but other things may be different, right? And very often why people don't achieve FIRE, even they want to, is because maybe in the partnership or in your marriage, the goals are misaligned, or you never even put the goals on the table and talk about them together. And that exercise is very important, because doing that, you can actually align your thoughts, your heart, your passion, your energy, and define, okay, we start with goal number 1. We both agree this is goal number 1. Once we have goal number 1, we go to goal number 2. And then you put a timeline, and you actually work together as a team, instead of I do me and you do you, and at the end, nothing gets done. And both of the partners are aware of the other partner's hidden dreams and goals and ambitions, and you can help each other to achieve them no matter what, and go through difficult times, because they will come back. Difficult times always come back.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that because it's a way of doing life design, isn't it? It's a way of designing your life, like starting with those goals, starting with those visions, and then you can kind of, design your life around that. So you're strategizing as a way to get to those goals, and also living it as you progress. Yeah, love that one. And really, really good tip there. So Matt, we talked about like the numbers side and the finances side, and of course that's just like one vertical. When you were going through this in your journey, what was your like why? What was your reason for going for FI? Your why to FI?
The why
what was
to
that? what was that for you, Matt?
The why to FI is my innermost desire to live and enjoy a free life, right? You can argue, yes, I do a job, I do this, I do that, I'm free as well, right? But the different sorts of freedom FIRE can unlock are tremendous. Especially one big part also even motivated me more. That was the moment I became a parent. That was 5 years before reaching the FI number. I have had clients in my wealth management journey. They worked their asses off, but they had actually even more than enough money and wealth than they could ever use in their whole life. But they spent so much time going after even more. And at the same time, they had children and the family at home and almost didn't have time for them. And later they figured, or they felt, that the kids turned out differently than they intended to. And they regretted not having spent more time together with them while they were younger, or helping them to actually become a better person or educate them. So my why to FI, one part was free time for family, to be here as a father, to help the kids grow up. Another time, of course, was my kids have 14 weeks, 4 weeks of school vacation every year. And I really enjoy to have some plans for each of these vacations every single year, and try to find a job where you can have 14 weeks off and say, yeah, I want to go to the mountains to ski. I want to go to the beach. We spent usually every summer in Taiwan because my wife is from there. We have a home there, so we are like 6 weeks in a row. We are in Taiwan. Maybe since COVID, you could argue my job allows me to work remotely, but it's always like you have to bid, you have to ask if maybe the
Yeah.
boss says no, right? And then you are not free, right? And on the other side, I could see it's like an identity question. I feel as well. I don't want to define myself through FI per se, but I see some people they are afraid of letting go of their job to lose their identity. And for me, the freedom was also when the weather is nice. I like to ride motorbikes, and if the weather is good and I have everything done that I wanted to achieve that day, I can go and have a motorcycle ride and enjoy that day this way. Another thing is I can spend some time with my parents, or I can go with my kids to see the dentist, get a haircut, buy some clothes. I can tell them stories. We can do a road trip spontaneously. All these things, right? They wouldn't be possible without FI. And also now I'm 45. I keep seeing a lot of people around me losing their jobs. It's a yeah, it gets harder to get employed again. And then once you reach a certain age and you are on the street with irrelevant skills, it's maybe too late to build this life. So it's also to be no longer subject to things you cannot control. The fire journey to build this nest egg and build this life, this is something that is in my control. And once I have that, the world, of course, if there's like a nuclear war or whatever asteroid banging the earth, I also subject to the consequences of that. But there is much more of like you are more responsible for your own life and fate. And responsible, the word contains the ability to respond. So no matter what happens, when COVID happened, I was more relaxed than other people. As a matter of fact, I was reading all the news. I made a COVID WhatsApp group with specialists from all areas, from politics, medicine, and so on. And then it turned out to be an investment opportunity in the end. So you actually have much more time to go after things that you are curious about in your life, and you can enjoy your time doing exactly what you like to do.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Matt. I really like that. I know you mentioned those are the things that, like, obviously that was your why, and obviously you're in that space now. And just thinking about the theme of the show, obviously freedom before reaching FI. I think probably the majority of the listeners are in that kind of stage of trying to get to FI because they want to unlock freedoms on the way. As you mentioned, you've unlocked freedoms when you got there as well. But I'd like to know from your experience, what freedoms were you able to unlock on your journey to getting to FI?
Well, the first freedom was possibly to focus on my skills. I was going to Taiwan. I learned to speak Chinese as a language. And that was something, the mix with my nationality, my background like as an economist, and then the language ability was something that was rare, maybe even scarce in the market. So I had the freedom to pick my job at one point in a high paid field. That was a very good thing. Then I could also kind of throw my hat into opportunities because I had these skills. Let's say the assignment to work in Singapore wouldn't have been possible if it wouldn't be for these skills. And Singapore is a highly paid and a very wealthy country. So if you work there, you earn well, you pay very little taxes. You mentioned geo arbitrage before. I think the FI mindset opens up that life can be designed, right? And I really urge people who want to build a life around FI, they have to be comfortable to stand out and be different, because that's all that there is about it. Because if you stay in your village or your town, you will not grow as much as if you were eager to go and embrace the big open world. There's so much more to be seen and to be learned. Also challenges that you come about. So, and the FI part there, it's maybe not in a situation where you are FI, but you are growing into this and you get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I think that's the point. Hell, I worked in a company in Taiwan at one point where I realized my boss kidnapped himself with the help of the mafia to make the company go fake bankrupt. And it was quite a big thing. And I was in my mid-20s. I was scared. And what I really loved there was I called my dad. Back then it was with Skype. I called my father and told him what happened. And my dad, I was expecting him to be scared about me, but actually he laughed and say, "Hey, son, welcome to the real world." Because growing up in Switzerland or in this wealth bubble, like in the West, we have a lot of places that are very secure and safe, right? So you grow up in a bubble and in an illusion and you don't see the real world. So for me, the FI mindset to embrace the unknown and go into other places made me very comfortable with uncomfortable, which without that, maybe I wouldn't have been able later to let go of my job because that was another thing. So I never forget how people ask me after I quit my job in 2017, they say, why the hell do you throw away your career at this point? You're not even 40 yet. You can you imagine how much income you forego by doing this choice, right? And well, then the answer was simply, well, I don't have to do it, but I think it's an even better life waiting for me if I go the path I decided for me to go. And yes, it's a more risky path, but I'm willing to take this risk, and I am comfortable doing so. That's something a lot of people in the FI community, they call it the one more year syndrome. You say maybe 1 million is my goal or 2 million is my goal. Once you reach that goal, you're not sure, shall I pull the trigger? Shall I let go of my job? A lot of people hang on to it because they are not comfortable to letting go. So the freedom, that comes as your bucket grows, the so-called few money bucket, where if at one point you ask how much money you got in the bank, some people will tell you, oh, I got 100,000, I have 200,000. At one point, I started to think about it in years. Oh, I got 1 year, I got 5 years, I got 10 years of money in the bank, which gives you a very different feeling about your life. If you can tell about yourself, you got 10 years of savings aside. You got 10 years to try something else and fail at it several times. And maybe what if it works out, right? And then once you have like 25 years, which is for the 4% rule. So that means the 4% rule, I guess your listeners maybe are familiar with that. If you have 2 million, 4% of it is the safe withdrawal rate. Then you can live off 80,000 a year of passive income. Then it means you never need to work anymore. This, depending, of course, on your lifestyle. If you want to spend more, you need more. You maybe need 3 million if you want to spend 120 or 10K per month, and so on. But the 25-year or 4% rule is basically this threshold where it gets really, really incredibly cool, because work or like employed work becomes irrelevant. And then when you have all this determination and all your experience and you put it to focus on your wealth, maybe you earn even more. For me, it was the case. After I had some of my best years in earning more money after I left my job, because I managed my assets better than before. And I took more time and was more deliberate about it. So there, the freedom, as you grow in this journey, the one part is this comfortable feeling that grows. You will be comfortable to be geographically free, to move to another country. One is the time freedom. You feel I need more time for this and that. Another thing then later becomes relationship freedom. You no longer need to suck it up to your boss, right? You can say I can go to that boss, or I'm my own boss. The further you grow into this journey, the more freedoms you unlock, until in the end, it's all yours. The freedom, your life, it's yours.
Yeah, I like that. And I liked what you also touched on about calculating, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of years. I like that because it's kind of like psychological safety net, isn't it? Like the more
Yep.
you've got sort of that FU money type thing, the more, psychologically safe you kind of feel. And it gives you that sort of confidence to take little risks here and there and things like that.
Some people in the community, they do something. It's called how they call it. It's like little retirements or short retirements.
Mini retirements.
Many retirements, yeah. Gillian Johnsrud writes about that. Gillian is also a great blogger, and I know her from FinCon. She writes about many retirements, and the idea there is, if you're not sure whether you should let go of your job, why not ask for a sabbatical? Go 3 months to Thailand and see how you like that life. And many people have this dream in their head. I will, when I have X dollars in my account, I will do Y and Z because I can afford it. But maybe they don't know if they even like that, right? So you should test it first. Maybe you come back and say, oh no, that's not the life I want. So, and then you keep working, and then very surely you shouldn't quit your job now and jump into something like that, right? So you have to figure out how you want to design your life and what freedoms you're actually longing for.
Yeah, speaking my language there, Matt. Me and my wife just finished a 16-month kind of mini retirement, but and it's because we wanted to spend time with my parents. They're getting older, sort of health things happening. We wanted to spend time because they're retired, so we wanted to spend time with them. We wanted to travel and try out these sort of passion projects and things like that. So yeah, I totally agree with that one. So definitely. And then Matt, so before we jump over to the sort of rapid fire questions, I just wanted to ask about, obviously, you're talking about unlocking freedoms before FI, and then you've been FI for sort of 8 or so
8 years,
something like that. Mm-hmm. So I suppose the golden question is, has it been, what it's cracked up to be? Like, what's the feeling now? What is it? What are the positives or challenges, goods and the bads, pros and cons of being FI? What everyone wants to achieve that place, and good to understand it from your point of view, Matt.
I think I've grown to really love my life, but also it's work. You have to arrange it. You have to figure out. And another thing that I find particularly interesting is usually when you go to parties or social events where you don't know the other people yet, or they don't know you. Sometimes the question is usually, who are you and what do you do? So that's the name and your job. And I think in the West, this question, what do you do? It started to annoy me, because the sole purpose of the what do you do question is to put you in a drawer. Oh, he's a doctor, he's a whatever. They want to put you in a drawer, and then that's it. That's case closed, right? And then here I come with my story. And usually I don't want to annoy people too long talking about this. So I had to say, well, now I can say I'm a politician, or I'm an entrepreneur. You have to find this corner you want to put yourself in, the label, so to say, because people don't like to think too much if they don't know you. And there was a few instances where it was really awkward. Like at one point, I was playing with my kids on the street. I taught my daughter how to ride the bicycle. And then a neighbor at one point came to talk with us, and the neighbor said, "Oh, it's so nice that you take your time to teach your daughter to ride a bike. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and the weather is so good. We have realized you are at home quite often. Have you actually started working yet?" And some people don't grasp the concept of not having to work. And then I think now it's quite cool. I can say, well, I work from home. After COVID, things have changed. I have my own setup. I do my own business. You have to, people will look at you in a weird way, or they will try to guess and say, why you don't need to work? Do you get support from your parents, or on whose wallet are you living? And it even goes as far as I started to look at newspaper reports very differently. Like some newspaper and media, they write about rich countries, but then they use the annual income as a factor of defining rich, not the wealth, which is very interesting. So, like, the society hasn't really figured this part out quite often. And well, has it promised what it is? Yes, definitely. So I love to plan road trips. I've become a professional in planning trips with booking.com or with trips.com, with multi-leg flights, with flying the triangle. I do credit card optimization. I've become a better handyman than ever before. We did some renovations in the basement. If I would have a job, maybe it wouldn't be possible to spend a week working on a wall and painting it, right? Then you got to understand all these things. I've become quite good in cooking and preparing meals, which is great. And now I have time to participate here in the local politics as well, which is great. And meet very interesting people as well, because people who participate in that field, they usually have more time allocated for things that they're passionate about. So it's quite interesting. So you also start to figure out who you want to hang out with, because if you're in a job, you usually go lunch with your colleagues, right? And then you're amongst peers. And once you are out of this social construct of a job, I still want to go out to have lunch sometimes with people. And now, of course, then you cannot just go to your colleague. You need to plan a bit more and think about who you want to meet, what do you want to talk about. But I think I'm nothing against my colleagues. They're all great people before, but you can choose very different people from different fields and expand your horizon. It's again about that curiosity. You have time to explore more, to learn more, to grow more after you fire.
Yeah, nice. Okay, really interesting. Thanks, Matt. All right, so Matt, we're going to jump over to the rapid fire questions. I've got 4 questions for you. If you could just answer them really quickly, really briefly. Okay, Matt, so question number 1 is, what are 1 or 2 daily habits that have helped you in your journey?
Cool. Getting up early, that's a bit stereotype, but I'm an early bird, and nowadays I get up at 5 a.m. even though I don't have to. I enjoy my early morning routines to write, to kind of meditate even, and to reflect on stuff. And the other habit is to plan. So I mentioned that before, to plan together with my family, my partner, and if we have bigger things to decide in life, it's not just about me. I will affect my family. So we plan together.
Nice.
And we do that very regularly. So we don't just do that every 5 years. We do that not even just yearly. We every time, because plans, you should follow your plans, but you should be flexible enough to revisit them if the situation changes or if there's any updates. And we have become quite a good team in planning and executing as well the plans. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Question number 2 is, what's your most important lesson in life?
Oh, well, that's a big one. My most important
it's a
lesson
biggie.
in life. I think one thing I mentioned before, you should leave your hometown, and maybe linked to that, the lesson is you become the average of the 4 or 5 people you hang out the most with. I mentioned before also the lunch buddy thing, or who you associate with even after you quit your job. I think that's also something I saw with my clients, because I know they affected me very deeply. Very grateful for my clients to help me on this journey as well during my job. So the thing that affected me the most, the lesson that helped me the most, is if you want to learn something or become someone or something, don't just read a book. Go to find people that are doing the things you want to do or achieve. Go to find them, because they have walked the talk. And it's not just if you want to learn more or become more like them, you got to reach out. You got to connect. you got to talk to these people, get to know them, and then automatically this is like we are animals in a way. We are like advanced chimpanzees. We will learn. Monkey see, monkey do, right? So the more you expose yourself to whoever it is that you want to become or grow towards, this is the way. And you can read a ton of books, watch all the YouTube channels about certain things. If you just stay at home, you will maybe not have the guts to try. But if you are in the right circle with people that know everything about that, it will be very easy to do something very hard.
Yeah, good one. Thanks, Matt. Next question is, what are 2 or 3 transformational book recommendations or any other artistic media, movie, anything like that you can recommend that sort of helped you?
Cool. I think certain things have helped me before. At the moment, I really like to read the books of Jordan Grumet. So he is the doc, fire doc. He has the Earn and Invest podcast. Sorry, I mentioned another podcast. He wrote a book. The first book is called Taking Stock. Okay, the Taking Stock book is really, really cool because he was a doctor accompanying people in the last days of their lives. And what is a fulfilled life if not a life where if you come to the end of it, you have very little regrets? I would say it's impossible to have regrets or no regrets at the end of the life. There's people that take a lot of time to think will always have like, oh, what if? But at one point you have to decide and go for something, right? So this book, Taking Stock, really puts in context what really matters in life. I loved it because it has nothing to do with numbers or technical things. It's all about the mindset. And once your mindset is aligned, the other things become easy. That's what I believe. And the second book I just started to read now is The Purpose Code, to have a purpose in life. I don't know. I'm sure I will love it, but that's the second book now that I look into. And there's a fair lot of great books, like J.L. Collins wrote The Easy Path to Wealth. That's a great one to people that are on the fire path. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is very easily written by Mr. Kiyosaki. I think I can also recommend that. Of course, he talks a lot about debt and real estate there, but this mindset thing is quite important. So there's a lot of stuff out there that I can recommend. Mr. Money Mustache doesn't blog as much anymore as he used to, I think. The Mad Scientist podcast, I also like it a lot. Great stuff. Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week, the Tools of Titans that I like, the Tribe of Mentors, which is great. Tribe of Mentors and Tools of Titans, they're kind of written like he interviewed people, and you don't have to read the book from A to C. You basically have chapters, like 4 or 5 pages about certain topics, and he interviewed people that are absolute geeks or like experts in their fields. So that's maybe something I would recommend for everyone's library at home.
Nice, yeah. I agree with a lot of those books and podcasts you mentioned.
If you know them already, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely fine. This is not just for me, it's for anyone listening as well. So that's perfect. Okay, Matt. So last question. So if someone's listening to you, they're really maybe they're starting their journey and go into FI. So what are 1 or 2 small things that listeners can do literally this week or next week, kind of progress in their journey to FI?
I mentioned it before. What I think the first thing you should do, if you haven't, is take a piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet, do your own balance sheet. What do you own? What do you owe? Make that number 1. Number 2, look at your P&L monthly and analyze it. The thing there is on the first one, you will probably find some assets that are not working for you as they should. On the second one, you maybe will see certain things that don't make you happy. Maybe you figure out you spend too much money on this or on that. And then, of course, tackle your make a plan about what you see there. For wealth building, of course, you need to increase the gap between earning and expenses. Focus on the big three. The big three are housing, transportation, and food. Once I had the idea to make a business out of each one of these three, like housing, rent out some housing, right? Food, maybe offer or like have a company in the food business. Maybe you can have like a forwarder or a website to offer home delivery stuff or whatever. Doesn't have to be like that. Or you can cook meals by yourself. If you go to work and you have 5 co-workers that all want to save money on food and you want to have lunch with them every like alternating, why not say Monday is my day? I cook 6 meals for all of you, and the rest of the week you don't need to go to the restaurant or don't cook, but somebody else will, right? So find some hacks there to be creative about it and reduce your expenses. And the third part, transportation. I figured since I bought an electric bicycle here, and the motorbike, I don't use my car that often anymore. So I use much less fuel and everything gets cheaper, do more workouts and so on. But all these things, write it down, analyze it and take action, optimize, right? And find a way. Optimizing doesn't mean you have to self-deprive yourself. It should be something joyful, meaningful. So don't do it in a way that you feel like, oh, Matt and or Greg made me suffer here through this and that. No, it's do it in a way that actually makes you happier in life, but money-wise makes you step forward. Like my example in Singapore was they have an alcohol tax. I started to brew my own beer. And whenever my coworkers asked me to go out, I knew after work beers, it will cost me probably $100, like 2-3 beers, some foods, and the taxi ride home. That's $100. Bye bye. And if I go out once a week with my coworkers, it's $400 a month, right? To brew 30 liters of beer in my own home, it only cost me $60 a month. And I had 30 liters of beer, and I could invite all my coworkers to my home and have beer for free for everyone. Guess
Nice.
Which option is better off, right? It saves you money, it's fun, you have a new skill, and you enjoy it. Find stuff like that.
Get creative.
And maybe another thing is meditation. So then I shut up. The last thing is with beer. So in Singapore, we used to have a jacuzzi in our condo. It also works if you have a bathtub at home or something, or you can go for a walk. What I do sometimes if I want to chat with a friend instead of a phone call or just sit in a restaurant and have a beer, we sometimes go for a walk, but we bring a beer along. So you bring 2 beers, your friend brings 2 beers, and maybe in Europe it's allowed. In some places in the world, you're not allowed to walk around drinking. But what we do, we walk, we take a hike, and we drink a beer, and we chat about certain things. And then you exercise maybe 1 hour, 1.5, and you drink something, and you have a very pleasant conversation. Meditation is important. So the jacuzzi, I call it jacuzzi beer storming. The whole point is to have we are so busy in this time, especially if you work a lot. So I have my best ideas and thoughts when my mind is idle and undisturbed. So you need to block out a lot of noise. That's maybe the key point here. That's why I like to go to the woods, to the mountains, ride my motorbike, or spend time in the jacuzzi, because I will be kind of deaf to all this noise. And I can focus and let my mind roll. And then some of the best ideas come out of there, because you start to listen to your unconscious thoughts, and they will come out. And then have a pen and some paper ready to pen down what things come to your mind. And this is maybe your subconscious mind talking to you, and take that serious.
Yeah, I feel the same actually. When same happens to me when I'm doing like mundane tasks, like ideas just pop in your head, like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. It's because you're not distracted. So yeah. Nice.
I have a whole folder on my cell phone with the Notes app. Simple as that. You don't have to have a fancy app or anything. Just write it down, and then eventually you distill them and you forget about them, delete them again or update them, work on it. And some of these ideas became my blog posts or later action points for life.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for answering the rapid fire questions.
My pleasure.
Is there anything you'd like to send the listeners? Anything you'd like to plug? Floor is all yours, Matt.
Oh, well, if you want to read more, come to my site. It's called financial dash, not dash, it's the hyphen Imagineer.com. You can follow me on Twitter or now X, Facebook. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I do offer consulting for financial independence, consulting sessions and packages. That's one thing I really enjoy to do because after having helped all these very wealthy people, I try to dedicate more time to help others to get on the journey. So that's my mission, one of the things at the moment that I'm very passionate about.
Awesome. And of course,
thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for your time on and jumping on the show.
Yeah.
And for sure, I'll those what you mentioned, we'll put it in the show notes as well. And let's keep in touch.
Keep in touch, Greg. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you need more help, you can check out our free guides and services on our website, freedombeforefi.com. If you have a burning question or just want to chat, don't hesitate to drop me an email at greg@freedombeforefi.com. If you found the show useful and want to be notified of future episodes, you can click follow on Spotify, Apple, or the app you're currently using right now. If you think the episode will help a friend or a colleague, feel free to share it with them. And lastly, if you learned just one good thing that will help you in your journey and you want to help us out, please do leave a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. That would help us out loads.